But they're just so compacted lately. If you miss a meeting, you don't get it. So how many solar projects have you done?
I know,
I mean, Bob asked the question the last
yeah,
meeting.
but,
and you didn't have an answer.
no, we did have the number. I'll ask Charlene right now. She had like the final number for us. But it was over, it was close to 30.
Oh,
30
yeah.
projects, at least.
I've got one.
Mel came in here yesterday and he was just kind of up in the air.
So Zerniak's gonna check?
Zerniak, Montañez, and Lear are supposed to be here.
Okay.
For sure. Sure those. Herrera was gonna have surgery and we never heard from
Well,
or
we
no
didn't
phone.
hear from him last time he joined in Zoom, so.
You know what, let me go back and just send out the email real quick.
Okay.
Because I don't think I sent out the
The link?
link.
Okay. Okay.
A big crew today.
How are you?
How's it going? I'm gonna move over here.
Wow, oh yeah?
Bob's got the chair.
Okay, that sounds good.
Mel's not gonna be here.
All right.
I'm gonna move.
I like it. This is pretty.
And there's just a lot of people that are gonna talk in support of that one that we're gonna deny.
I don't know which one that is.
The first one,
Okay.
commercial building, I didn't do
Okay. Oh, yes, I did read that.
spot zone, spot zone.
Okay.
We make the motion, we have to move to approve the zone change and then vote no and give you reasons why.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's meeting. We're waiting on one more commissioner, Commissioner Lear.
Chair, we do have,
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes. You're online?
Yeah,
All right.
yes, I'm online.
Okay. Okay, thank you, everybody attending today's meeting of March 9th, 2023. We have a quorum, Albert? All right. Roll call of officers, please.
Commissioners Argis,
Here,
Commissioner Herrera, Commissioner Montañez,
Present.
Commissioner Lear,
Here,
Commissioner Castañeda, Vice Chair Zerniak, Chair Acosta.
Present. Okay, item number 2, approval or changes to the agenda, commissioners?
move the agenda as presented.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? No discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those
Aye.
opposed? Okay, thank you. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 3, approval of minutes of the regular meeting of January 26, 2023.
Move to approve?
Move to approve. Okay. Any second on that?
Second it, even if it
Okay.
wasn't here.
Roll call on that, please.
You want to just do a voice vote?
That-
You can just do a voice vote.
Okay, it's been approved. Item number 3, again, item B, work session meeting of February 9th, 2023. There was some of us present and some of not. Am I correct? Who was present here, Albertino?
You're talking about the work session.
yeah, I
work
believe it was,
session?
you were here, Montañez, and Commissioner Lear, and
I was here.
Commissioner
The work
Sargis.
session, I
Yes.
was here.
So we do have enough to make that vote on those minutes.
If my memory recalls correctly, Commissioner Zargis was present, Commissioner Lear,
Yeah,
Chair Costa, and
I think Commissioner Zerniak's the only one who missed the work
and-
session. And
Commissioner Herrera was present. That's when he announced that he
Dan
wouldn't
was
be
here.
here due to his knee surgery.
Okay, just for the record, anyway, I don't think a lot of us were totally informed as to what the Department of Transportation was about to give us. But anyway, we'll invite Mr. Love again. Maybe he has better information at that time. Is that okay? All right. Item number 4, old business. Nothing? All right. Item number 5, new business. Case number Z 23-007. Are you ready for that, Albert?
Good morning. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Albert Casillas, 845 North Motel Boulevard.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Morning, Commissioners. Our first case today, it's going to be a zone change request from Mr. Arnaldo and Virginia Olivas, and they are present here today. This property is located on 5575 Shenandoah Trail, and it's a little bit east of the village of Doña Ana. Current zoning is D1, and the property is 1 acre, and the proposal is to go from D1 to a C3 regional commercial zoning district. And this is in order to correct the zoning violation for the parking of 5 semi-trucks on the property. This is the location map. So we basically have, this is going to be Doña Ana Road right here, and then we have Thorpe coming in from I-25. You have the village of Doña Ana. You basically cross over from Doña Ana Road, you cross the railroad tracks, and then the property's going to be right here. So basically, the property's between the EBID canal here on on the left, and then you got the railroad tracks here on the right.
Can you please get closer to the mic? Thank you.
Yes, sir. Here's a zoom in of the property itself. We have West Thorpe Road, which is a New Mexico DOT maintained right-of-way. We have the EBID ditch on the rear, and this is Shenandoah Trail, which is a 50-foot privately maintained right-of-way. And this is the subject parcel. This is a photo from 2018. When we look at the zoning map and the subject parcel, existing zoning, it's D1, and it's basically surrounded by D1 now. And it's a straight line from the property over to that intersection here of Doña Ana and Thorpe. It's about 1,000 feet. And on there, you'll see, some industrial and C2 zoning at that intersection. But pretty much surrounding the subject parcel, it's all going to be D1 or D1L. So he is requesting that zoning from D1 to C3 in order to park the 5 semi-trucks on the property. C3 allows for the semi-truck parking, but it also allows for the maintenance, repair, or service of those semi-trucks. And then just a little bit of history, I'm going to try and give you a rundown of, why we're here today. Back in November of 2021, the applicant, the property owner, first applied for a building permit to build a 6,000 square foot metal building, so the garage. And back then it was stated it was going to be for personal use and to park an RV. So originally, the application was denied because it was exceeding, the accessory building size for a residential accessory building. In the D1, we allow people to build up to 10% of the lot or 5,000 square feet, whichever is less. So on an acre, he's able to build up to 4,300 square feet. So if he wanted something that size, he would have to gone through a variance. So the property owner, he inquired with staff on what he would be able to do in order to allow it, at that size without having to go through the variance. And so it was explained to him that if the roof from the existing home was attached to the new garage, then this could be considered one structure under one roof. So then that's when the option of attaching it via a covered breezeway or walkway was done. This permit originally was pulled as a homeowner's permit to construct the building. So this is allowed under the building code. Basically, if you live on the property, you are allowed to build something as through a homeowner. And so the applicant filled out that form to do it himself, and then the building permit was issued in December. So it took about a month to get that permit done, and the building permit was issued to the property owner, Mr. Olivas. Later on that month, code enforcement, we got complaints of a commercial building permit being erected on the property without the property owner residing on the property. So Mr. Olivas was contacted. Once again, he stated the building was not for a commercial use and that he would be hiring a contractor to build it. On January 7th, 2022, the property was red tagged because the applicant was not residing at this residence, and it voided the existing permit. So Mr. Olivas had to hire a licensed contractor to take over responsibility of that building permit, and then the permit was issued to DNL Home Improvements on January 20th, 2022, still as a residential building permit. On February 2022, code enforcement, they requested a sworn affidavit from Mr. Olivas stating that the building would not be used for commercial purposes. On April of that same year or last year, 2 citations were issued to Mr. Olivas for improper zoning and for parking the commercial vehicles on site. And then from there, just went to the courts. We've had a few hearings, pre-trial hearings. It's been on the docket call. So basically, the judge is saying, Mr. Olivas, go to the county, talk to community development and see what can be done before, we issue a final decision on this case. This is a site plan that was submitted by Mr. and Mr. Olivas, and I kind of just zoom in on the smaller details just so it's clear. But this is a property, Shenandoah Thorpe. He's showing the entrance to the property off of Shenandoah. You see the existing 6,000 square foot garage being connected through the existing dwelling via that breezeway right here. And right here, he's just showing a turning radius for the trucks. You got some general notes on there. So here's a close-up of the site plan itself. And then you also see the cross-section for the ponding areas. So existing building, existing garage. Here's the 6,000 square foot garage that was built and then connected via that breezeway to the existing home. And then here's just a survey without all the lines. But basically, this is what was submitted through the building permit, showing the 60 by 100 garage.
Did I miss something here? Was there a building permit issued for a residential building?
Yes, for the garage.
And where's that on the property?
So it's this one right here.
But that's a garage, not a residence, not a
Well,
residence.
a building permit was issued for the garage.
Okay,
So it was a building permit for a garage. And here are just some plans that I pulled from the original building permit. So we see that it has 3 main doors into the garage. It's 100 by 60, and it's about 20 feet tall. And these are the construction drawings that were submitted for the breezeway itself. So here we have an aerial view of the property, kind of zooming out of what's surrounding the area. Basically, there's about 17 lots along Shenandoah Trail. You got the EBID ditch, you got the railroad tracks, the village of Doña Ana is here to the east, and then everything pretty much to the west. It's mostly ag and single-family residential. So I'll be taking a few, well, the next slides are pictures that I took out there. This is Shenandoah Trail, this is Thorpe. So we're basically looking west into the property. This is the 6,000 square foot garage back here. We already see that there's semis parked on there. This is the existing dwelling, and then we have an existing garage here as well. This is the entrance to the property right here. And here's just a close-up of the property. You see the garage on the back. That's the breezeway that connected the garage to the main dwelling. And here's what the garage looks like from the front with the 3 bay doors. And just another picture of the property here. And this is another picture that was taken over the weekend. So you kind of see a total of 3 semis parked on the property right there. So I'm here I'm standing right over by the ditch, looking east onto the property. This is a picture that I took from Google Maps. There is a truck already in there, and you can see the hood's already up. And it's, I don't have a date on here, but I believe it's November of 2020, well, December, it's late 2011. This is a picture of Shenandoah Trail. So like I said, it's privately maintained. It's 50 feet of right-of-way, serving about 17 lots, residential lots. And here I'm looking back towards Thorpe Road. And then just another view of Thorpe going west. And this is Thorpe going east.
but he has no access to Thorpe.
No access to Thorpe, no. And then here I just took a picture of the intersection over there of Doñana and Thorpe. So when looking at the zone changes and the requirements, we got to look at section 350-203 for zone changes and decisional criteria. 14 letters of notification were sent out. Legal ad was posted on the Sun News, and signs were posted on the property. And on your packet, you'll see letters that were received and emails regarding this case. And I did receive an additional email here, and I'll just send that out to you. Signs were posted on the property, and the agenda was posted on the county website as well. So here's a picture of the hearing notice. And those were the properties that were notified. When looking at the D1 decisional criteria, number of homes, well, the applicant's not proposing any additional homes. There's no effect on population. It's for a commercial use. There's no impacts to demographics. When looking at the potential traffic flows and impacts, the applicant on the summary, he's stating that little to none properties adjacent to Highway 320, which is Thorpe Road. I own a total of 5 trucks. They're usually out on the road, but they do sometimes need to come home and park. The in and out is 1 truck a day, 2 or 3 times a week. When one does come home, they are in the evening and pull out in the morning and are gone for days or even weeks to a month or more. So we did, on your analysis, there's comments from DOT stating that, the applicant needs to obtain a driveway permit from New Mexico DOT, even though he doesn't have, direct access to Thorpe. They probably won't even give him one. They still need to look at the impacts of the business on Thorpe Road. What I'm going to hand out to you guys right now, Mr. Olivas did contact the assistant engineer with DOT District 1. He did have some conversation with them. He did give an opinion on the request. He basically he's not against the zone change. So I read his email. I contacted him. We talked a little bit. I forwarded him the link to the case, and he replied again with additional comments. So I'm going to hand those out to you guys so you guys can take a look at those, and I'll give you guys a second to read.
Albert, one question here. If we're considering a commercial zone property right next to a public highway, wouldn't a TIA be automatically necessary?
So Commissioner Montañez, for the zone change itself, yes, I mean, it would have been helpful to have a TIA or an STA. But in the end, it's up to DOT to determine how much of an analysis they're going to require. Like I said it before, I mean, staff, we're not asking for direct access to Thorpe, but at least to have an opinion or something from New Mexico DOT where they reviewed the request and that they've made up a determination or on any types of improvements if they're going to be required at all. On those emails, I do have something from Harold Love stating that property owner would need to fill out a permit application and submit to our office for approval. Type of improvements may include right turn, left turn, deceleration lanes, but they can make a determination if they don't have that information on their desk. So that was a response from Harold Love because he was the one who originally had first reviewed the request. And like I stated, Mr. Olivas went and contacted the district engineer, Mr. Garcia. He's the assistant traffic engineer with the DOT District 1, and his comments are on those emails right there. So, you know, to going back on item number 4 right here on the potential traffic flows, they will need something from New Mexico DOT. The minimum access requirements for C3 are along a county road or state highway and has access from either a 60-foot wide right-of-way or easement with a 36-foot wide improved roadway. Shenandoah Trail is 50 feet unimproved, private right-of-way serving residential uses. So Shenandoah Trail, you know, does not meet, you know, the requirements for a C3 designation. So if approved, road improvements will be required on Shenandoah Trail.
Well, but it's a private road. So if improvements are required, wouldn't he have to get approval from all the property owners? I mean, I'm not clear on this. Who owns the road?
It's private.
But when you say it's private, who's the private party that owns the road?
The property lines don't go to the middle of the road.
Okay.
So they're privately maintained by all the property owners.
So
It's supposed to be.
So he couldn't improve the exit side of the road without the approval of that property owner on the other side of the road, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, they would have to be, you know, we do have road maintenance agreements and all that stuff and all those forms that need to be filled out. But if it came to that, that would be along, you know, that would be part of the process from the grading permit or the building permit for that road that would have to be submitted through to engineering. So that would be through that process.
Albert, do we know if there's a current road maintenance agreement in place for Shenandoah Trail?
I'm not aware of any, but we can ask the applicant in a bit. Item number 5, need for new commercial or residential activity. The applicant states that no commercial activities to be performed. You know, staff thinks that, you know, the parking of semi-trucks is not an allowed use under D1. The zone change to C3 will allow the applicant to park the semi-trucks and do maintenance on them. And I'm just going to clarify a little bit. C2 allows for the parking of the semi-trucks. It's the C3 that kicks in whenever there's going to be maintenance on those trucks. So that's why, you know, when I first talked with the applicant and the request and the proposal and everything that entailed, you know, the trucking business, a discussion did happen, you know, that there was going to be maintenance on those trucks. And that's why, you know, I recommended for him to apply for the C3, which would take care of just not only the parking, but the maintenance. Potential water and sewer needs. There is a residential septic tank on the property, which has to be upgraded for commercial uses per NMED. Water is provided by Doña Ana Mutual Domestic. There was a fire flow test conducted out there by Doña Ana Mutual, and it came out to a flow rate of 900 GPM. So when you look at the comments from the fire marshal, you know, they're requiring a flow of 1,750 gallons per minute for 2 hours because of the construction type, the size of the building. So, you know, the existing fire flow that's out there does not meet that requirement right now. Existing infrastructure capacities and the ability of existing systems to accommodate the new development. Like I said it before, you know, we are going to have to get something from New Mexico DOT. Septic tanks are going to have to be updated. He doesn't meet the fire flow, so he's going to have to meet that. And then there's the change of occupancy to the existing building that was approved as a residential structure. There's no evidence right now of any endangered or rare species of animal and plant life in the area. So it's about 1,000 feet from that intersection of Doña Ana Road and East Thorpe Road, where there is existing commercial and industrial zoning. Shenandoah Trail, it's unimproved, it's private. It serves 17 residential lots. So the staff believes that, 5, semi-trucks entering and exiting the property via Shenandoah Trail and Thorpe Road, it's not going to guarantee the safety, health, and general welfare of those residents using Shenandoah Trail. It's not a compatible use with the surrounding residential uses. Implementation of best management practices. The applicant states that no development is being performed. The garage has already been built through a residential building permit. If the zone change is approved, the occupancy of that building will need to be changed, and it's going to trigger additional requirements already outlined by the building official and the fire marshal. So we believe that the applicant does not meet that decisional criteria. My voice is getting raspy. When it comes to the comp plan, Plan 2040, the code states that a zone change should not be in significant conflict with the comprehensive plan. So staff believes that the proposed development is in conflict with the comp plan. A proposed zone change to a C3 does not complement the surrounding residential uses and goals such as G 2.2 and Action 2.2. Goal G 2.2 talks about safeguarding and extending desirable neighborhood character. The action under that goal talks about preserving the existing neighborhood's character by tailoring to zones that are going to match it. We also got to look at the Miller criteria, change of conditions, making the zone change necessary. So when addressing the change of conditions, there's no evidence of a change of condition making the zone change reasonably necessary. The 6,000 square foot garage was built as a non-commercial structure in a residential zone. The zone change is not intended to cover and perfect the previous defective ordinance or to correct mistakes or injustices. So we don't believe that there's a change of conditions. And we do believe that it's going to be a spot zone. It's going to be in disharmony with the surrounding zoning. The property is 1 acre. It's not going to be a benefit to the community by allowing the parking of those semi-trucks, and it's only going to benefit the property owner.
Can you go back one, Albert? So what you're saying in the last sentence is the proposed zone change. You're not talking about zone changes in general, right?
That's correct, this one specifically.
Okay.
So under D1, basically it's all residential. You're only allowed to have residential uses on there. You can have a home occupation for a home office, that kind of stuff. But the main use is still residential. C3 opens it up to a lot of retail, light manufacturing, but it does allow for truck repair, and it does allow for the semi-truck parking that's being requested.
Albert, would C2 would C3 allow for a bigger for a permit for a bigger unit than what's already, or sorry, for the size of the unit that's already constructed there, or would C2 restrict them to a smaller size garage? I guess where I'm trying to go is why C3 versus?
Because
why do they apply for C3?
C3 allows RV or truck repair. So if the applicant's planning on doing any type of maintenance on those trucks, it's not allowed under C2. C2 will only cap it at the parking itself, and that's it. Okay. But he wouldn't be able to maintain none of the semi-trucks. Okay. For our findings, they're included on your packet, but going to number 3 right here, the zone change to the C3, it doesn't satisfy the decisional criteria. It's not appropriate. As Shenandoah Trail, it's a 50-foot unimproved private right-of-way. It's serving 17 residential lots. The closest commercial and industrial zoning is about 1,000 feet away at that intersection of Doñana Road and Thorpe Road. Having 5 semi-trucks entering and exiting the property via Shenandoah Trail, it's not going to guarantee the safety, health, and general welfare of those residents using Shenandoah Trail. C3 is not compatible with those surrounding residential uses. The garage has already been built through a residential building permit. If the zone change is going to be approved, then the occupancy of that building is going to have to be changed, and it's going to trigger additional requirements, and those requirements are outlined there on the analysis. So basically comments from the building official and the fire marshal. We do believe it's a spot zone. It's basically going to be for the sole benefit of the property owner, and it's in conflict with the comprehensive plan. So our recommendation today for this request on case number Z23-001 is to deny the zone change from D1 to C3 for the parking and maintenance of those semi-trucks. I do have, the applicant is here. We do have building services and the fire marshal. I do have a request from the fire marshal that if you do have any questions regarding fire, to see if he can come up here and answer those first, as he has another meeting pending around 10. So staff, that's the end of my presentation, so we do stand for questions.
Should we hear from the applicant? I know the fire marshal has to go. Do you want to put him first, or do you want to hear, should we hear from the applicant first?
We can hear from the applicant if that's, or
Colbert, I'd like to do this. I know that we have Sean and the fire marshal here. I'd like for them to come forth and give us their testimony, but I'd like to establish a rule for the remaining people in the gallery that are for or against. The rule that we have is that if you want to testify on your behalf, either for or against this proposal that's in front of us, we would like for you to sign in.
Commissioner Acosta, I already have the list.
You already have them
Yes,
signed
sir.
in? Okay. And I will only allow about 5 minutes for testimony. The reason for that is there's a lot of redundancy in many cases before us that have come forward before us. And so what I'll do is, if it's redundant and it's the same testimony that the other person is going to have, we're going to let you speak, and then we're going to ask you to sit down. And before anybody comes forth, I'd like for you to be sworn in. And I guess we will start now with the fire marshal. Would you please step forward? Please raise your right hand.
Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Captain Philip Ray, 845 Motel Boulevard.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Chair, Commissioners, how we doing? Are there any specific questions in regards to this that you have? I can kind of give you what my decisional criteria was when going over this zone change.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So is it even possible to get that kind of fire flow to that property, given the current state of the water system there?
So no, it is not, but the reduction of that requirement can be done with the implementation of a suppression system into that building. But even without the fire flow, because of the use or the change of use that this, if approval would take place, it still would require a suppression system no matter if they had the flow or not. And that can actually be, I can actually give you the code reference for that, and it can be found in what we use, the 2015 International Fire Code, Chapter 9, and it's in Section 903.10.1, and that's commercial parking garages. So a zone change would change this to a S2 occupancy, and an automatic sprinkler system shall be provided throughout buildings used for storage of commercial motor vehicles when the fire area exceeds 5,000 square feet. So,
Thank you.
Okay, any questions, Commissioners of Fire Marshal? No questions? Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Sean, would you like to step forward?
Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Sean Vick, 845 North Motel Boulevard.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners,
Morning.
Morning, Sean.
You went to the facility and you red tagged the facility, right?
I've done some inspections and then the red tag was placed on the facility.
And just for public input, we have your comments on here. Why did you red tag the facility?
It wasn't for residential purposes. And I believe, I'm not sure if it was myself or Patrick, I'd have to go back and look, but we were aware of the operation for the semis. When originally it was only supposed to be residential, and so that's why we kind of circumvented the code a little bit, would you say, by allowing the breezeway to connect one structure to another. The intent of the code was met. There's certain parameters that we can do on residential that's not commercial. So the intent of the code was there, and how the building permit was permitted.
So, Mr. Chair? So is that structure that's there, is that defined as a breezeway?
It is.
Okay.
It's connecting one building to the other with one continuous roof line.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions of the Fire Marshal Commissioners? Okay, thank you, Sean.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Sean, wait, can I ask you one more question?
Yes, sir.
Why was it taken to court?
Taken to court?
Yeah,
I believe non-compliance because the commercial vehicles are still there. And so this was a residential application only. So for it to become a commercial application of the building code, it falls under Chapter 4 for special occupancies, which is going to be motor vehicle related occupancies, whether it be a parking structure, enclosed, outdoor parking, repair garages. In our aspect, then all of a sudden we have automatic sprinkler systems required, mechanical ventilation. The S2 requires restrooms, oil interceptor for the floor, and I don't believe there's a floor drain. So it triggers a lot more requirements. Based on the separation to the property to the south, I believe it's only 5 feet from the current structure to the property line. We're looking at a 1-hour firewall on that side. So residential, you know, you can park your RV in there, your garage. I mean, I'd love to have 6,000 square foot, you know, metal building to play around in. But once we change the use, it triggers everything in the building code on what's required. And that's where this really comes into focus on this.
Mr. Chair.
Any further questions?
Yes. So Sean, I think you just answered my question. So without the existence of the 6,000 square foot structure, the vehicles would still not be allowed on a D1L property, regardless of the size or regardless of proximity to a highway.
That is correct. It's not allowed for zoning for the vehicles to be there. Okay, all right. Mr.
Thank
Chair,
you.
Commissioners, thank you.
Okay, all those, I didn't get a list of who's going to come first.
So Commission,
Chair, yeah, I believe Mr. Acosta, not Mr. Acosta, Mr. Olivas should be next to give a presentation.
Applicant.
Is the applicant present? Would you please step forward? And we're going to swear you in.
good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Arnaldo Olivas, 2033 San Patricio Loop.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Thank you.
Staying here before you, good morning. I will answer any questions and provide any information you need.
And please step a little bit forward, so closer to the mic there. Thank
Is that better? Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I bought this property in 2011, May 11th to be exact. signed on it May 11th, 2011. When I bought that property, it was purpose for my mother to live there, which she still does, and that small residence home that's on the property. And I did have trucks before. I had 3 trucks when I bought it. I came here to the development office, and I spoke to Mr. Luis Marmolejo, and I mentioned that I did have 3 trucks that I could park there. It would be a problem. And he said at the time, there shouldn't be any problems. So I went on and did that. I did have a total of 5 trucks. Now I'm down to 3 trucks. And I decided to build that building, just to park them there. Sometimes I do oil changes, did oil changes at the time. I didn't do no major work. I didn't run the trucks for over 5 minutes at the most. And that's why I built the garage, to park them, check the oil on it, tire pressure, whatever is needed there. But there is no commercial activity going on there other than just parking. Commercial activity is, by definition, is to intent or make money, and parking the trucks doesn't make me any money. I also saw that he stated, Mr. Casillas, that by description of 1,000 feet from the nearest commercial building, it's the nearest one, and I measured it by a measuring wheel. It's 698 feet right across the railroad tracks. And the one across from it is, if you go air distance, it's 896 feet. If you walk it, it's 800. I take that back. It's 854 feet air distance. And if you walk it, it's 896 feet. So I don't know if the 1,000 feet, it places in a spot zoning, I think is what he called it, or if it's within that or after that. And on the fire marshal, yeah, he did say that I would need 750 feet of water flow. I do have from the 2015 fire code, national fire codes, I believe it's what it's called, where I'm only going to use it for parking. I did have the intention to use maintenance on them, but I will not be doing that at all. I did do revise on the narrative, and according to those codes, if it's open space up to 12,000 feet or even closed, I won't need a ventilation or a sprinkler suppression system if I meet that. But I can only use it, turn the engine off to enough time for it to go in, turn it off, and enough time, turn it on to bring it back out. And I can provide those codes for you if you'd like. It would be an S1, and it's on the mechanical exhaust, which it would be ventilation, on 502.14 motor vehicle operations. Exceptions, number 3, it says, this section shall not apply to motor vehicle service areas where engineers are operated inside the building only for the duration necessary to move the motor vehicle in and out of the building. So that takes out the ventilation, in my belief. And then for the sprinkler, I don't, if I can find it here, it's, I do not need one unless I have over 12,000 feet on the building. Here it is. It's a National Code Compliance Book. Storage group S2. It could be up to 10,000 square feet. And it's on 311.3, low hazard storage group S2. Storage groups to S2. Parking garages or opened or closed storage areas. And I do have the measuring distance on the nearest commercial buildings, which are it's a fire extinguisher place on Doniana Road. I'm exactly 192 feet, like I had mentioned, if you go on Shadeland Trail. But if you go air distance as a degree of description, it is a total of 155.7 feet. I don't know if that's the 1,000 feet that falls in the spa zoning, like Mr. Casillas had said. I'm not sure. And also on the trucks, I have a certified clean idle, which is, even if they did run for over 5 minutes, they put out 150 parts per million in 30 minutes of monoxide, which you'd have to breathe about 150 hours of it in order to start to do any damages on your system, your lung system. Also I did spoke to like he had mentioned, to the fire, not the fire, but the DOT department. And at first, which I explained to me, I did intend to do some maintenance just to check oils and maybe change it here and there every 12,000 miles, which happens every 3 months on each truck, which it's maybe 2 or 3 times a year. And I did get a letter from or not a letter, but a email back from DOT department where it states that he didn't have a problem with it, but after the fact that the investigation where I did mention I was going to do maintenance on there, that it would trigger all the improvements that Mr. Casillas had mentioned. But before that, when I explained to him that how many trucks I would have, he did not have a problem with it at all. I mean, I can give you a copy of the original email if you'd like to see it. Would you like that?
Chair, that's the email that I sent out, or that I gave you guys. That's from Miguel Garcia, New Mexico, DOT District 1. Assistant
So we
Traffic
already
Engineer.
have a copy.
Yeah, so I handed that out during my presentation. Yes.
Is there any other questions that you may have for me?
Mr. Chair. Mr. Olivas, the permit that you applied for would have allowed for a 5,000 square foot or 10% of the lot area, whichever is less. Would you have been able to operate with a 5,000 square foot building rather than a 6,000 square foot garage?
Yes, I would have been. That was the question, correct? Yes, I can build a wall in there and make it 5,000.
No, I'm talking about it initially when you built the garage. Would it have been possible for you to do whatever your intentions were? I mean, you've stated that this was not for commercial use. Yeah, but you exceeded the required. You exceeded the the allowable building size by 1,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I was trying to ask. Would you have been able to do it as you wanted to do with this building with 1,000 square feet less than what you built?
Yes, I could have, yes.
Thank you. Nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions? Thank you so much, Mr. Olivas. Do you have the list?
Yes, sir. Did you want me to call them?
Yes, please.
Okay. The first one on the list is Miss Grace Corrigan.
Please step forward to the mic. Yep. Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Grace Corrigan, 5509 Shenandoah Trail, Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Well, my name's Grace, and I live approximately 4 houses down from this massive garage that we have built at the end of the road. I just have a few questions. One would be, how is it going to affect my property value and his operations of hours? He's already has 5 trucks on the driveway, and he has refrigerated trucks that run all night, which I'm down the road, I can hear them running all night long. His in and out has affected the end of the road where we have to go in and out. There's a giant like hole in the end of the road now that we have to avoid. He parks his trucks along Thorpe Road, which blocks the vision of getting out of Shenandoah Trail. The truck's parked there off and on. And he comes in and out at all hours of the night. So, I mean, my main concern is like, how is this going to affect my property value? I didn't move into that area as a commercial truck stop. I moved there as a residential person that wanted peace and quiet. And that's all I have to say about it.
Any questions, Commissioners? Thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you.
And your last name again, please, for the record?
My name?
The last name?
Corrigan, C-O-R-R.
Patricia Melendez.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Please raise your right hand and state your name and address for the record.
Patricia Melendres, 5505 Shenandoah Trail.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for your time. I just want to make a few additional points. First of all, I believe very strongly that past behavior is the best predictor for future behavior, and Mr. Olivas has consistently been untruthful in what he has requested for this property, stating that it was for personal use, first of all, and second of all, stating that he resided at the property. I have lived on Shenandoah Trail for over 12 years. My partner has lived there for over 24, and Mr. Olivas has never been a permanent resident of Shenandoah Trail. There's also seems to be a certain degree of irresponsibility and disregard for rules and regulations. Mr. Olivas seems to think that he can make rules as he goes along. A fence was removed from the property to allow the easy egress of his semis. And Mr. Olivas has a dog that consistently runs loose on our street. Just another example of the disregard for laws and rules and regulations. Our pets are all within chain link fences, and his runs freely from time to time throughout the neighborhood, causing havoc. We have heard from neighbors farther away that these semis are on their streets turning in the middle of the night. So not only are his trucks causing disruption for us in our neighborhood, they are also causing disruption for residents within a certain range of his home that is outside of this circle that was presented to us in the letter we received from the county. Just for the record, there's no road maintenance agreement on Shenandoah Trail. We have several times tried to find out who can maintain this road for us, because after a rain, we jokingly refer to it as Lake Shenandoah. But what we have been told by the county repeatedly is that this property once belonged to one individual who subdivided it, consequently passed away, and never submitted the correct paperwork to the county to get it deemed as a road that belongs to, several residents, and therefore there is no maintenance on this road whatsoever. Trucks coming in and out of there is not going to help with the conditions of that road in any way, shape, or form. I think that this change is a change that will only benefit Mr. Olivas. His statement that he only parks trucks there. If you only want a place to park a truck, then go rent a place at an RV space to park your trucks. I think the fact that these reefer trucks are running all night and that at any given time we see trucks coming and going in the middle of the day. I sent a video into the county with my letter showing 12 noonish, a semi pulling in. According to the current zoning that he has, he's supposed to have one semi on that property. There are consistently 3 tractors and trailers with an additional tractor at all times. Ms. Corrigan referred to him parking his trailers parallel to Thorpe Road. When you're pulling out from Shenandoah, Thorpe is a very narrow road at that point. When you're pulling out from Shenandoah Trail and that trailer is parked parallel to Thorpe, you have to stick your nose out onto Thorpe to be able to see if someone is coming from the left-hand side, and that is a hazard. Something else that no one has addressed is that is where the children of Shenandoah Trail catch the bus in the morning. And I don't think semis coming and going or those blind spots are beneficial to the children of our neighborhood. They didn't ask for this. All of us moved there to find a peaceful, quiet country lifestyle, which we had prior to Mr. Olivas coming in and deciding that he was going to conduct his business there, because obviously he wouldn't have been allowed to do this in his Sonoma Ranch neighborhood. I strongly oppose what he is trying to do. I think I speak for my neighbors that I have spoken to in the past to say that they equally disapprove of this, and we certainly hope that the county protects the majority of its constituents in giving this a hard no. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Thank you very much for your testimony. Next person?
Mr. Brian Bullard? Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Brian Bullard, 5549 Shenandoah Trail.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
A lot of what I was intending to say, my neighbors have already said, so as you requested, Chairman, for brevity, I won't touch on the same subjects. The one thing I will point out is, I will reiterate the amount of time that those trucks are there and the amount of time that they're running, I believe is being misrepresented. I live directly next door to the property. If you look at the aerial that Mr. Casillas showed you earlier of the new building, right next to it, you can see another building. That's not a garage. It's not a storage shed. That is my home. Thank you, sir.
And Mr. Bullard, you submitted an email?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. So you see in the bottom right-hand corner there, in this picture, the building is not there yet, but where that building is to become is where you can see a semi-truck parked. Directly next to that is my home. The other structure you see, which is only partially shown, is the home of my son. My wife is Leslie Miles Bullard, and her mother is Alice Miles Ramsey, and they bought this property in the early 80s. This has been their family home for over 40 years. So this is not something that we take lightly. We're not renters, we're not coming and going. This is our home, and it's been our home for 40 years, and now our home is disturbed. Those trucks are parked there and run more than 5 minutes. The refrigerated units, as my neighbor said, run all night. Those refrigerated units don't just bother us. They interrupt our sleep because you can see how close we are to that property. But they also bother the animals. The zoning that's currently there, I believe, allows for horses, goats, that's, the type of the animals on your property. We have a horse, or we've certainly, we just relocated it. But our horse was disturbed all night by the sound of those refrigerated units running. Our horse would never rest. That is not acceptable to us. That should be considered. So it's not just the people, but the animals which the property is zoned for are also disturbed by this. The biggest thing, and both my neighbors have touched on this, is the safety. She mentioned the bus stop. That's, I think, a very, very big concern of ours. The other concern is Shenandoah Road is a dead-end road. So we don't get a lot of traffic. If you're coming down Shenandoah Road, it's because you live there and you know somebody who lives there and you drive accordingly. So they're very rarely a fast driver. The kids in the neighborhood feel safe. They ride their bikes up and down Shenandoah Road. Kids on bikes and semi-trucks are not a good mix. So I think the safety of the children and the safety of the people in that neighborhood is the #1 concern. Again, I have a whole list of things, but I think my neighbors have already reiterated it, and at your request, I'm not going to repeat a lot of the same stuff. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your testimony.
Well, I'm sorry, if you'll allow me. One other comment that didn't get touched on. I know the fire marshal was here and talked about potential needs for fire suppression and water pressure. I don't remember what year it was, but 7 or 8 years ago, there was a dump truck, which belonged to Mr. Olivas, that caught fire on the property, not more than 20 feet from our fence, not more than 20 feet from where our grandchildren play. It required the fire department to arrive to distinguish this fire, and I believe the truck was destroyed. So that is a valid concern. Having this commercial vehicles on that property so close to where our home is, again, there is that fire safety as well. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next person.
Adolfo Altamirano. Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Adolfo Altamirano, 5455 Shenandoah Trail.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I live at 5455 Shenandoah Trail. We lived there 45 years, and we're opposing this property zone change because we tried to get the county to upgrade the road several times, and we can't get anybody to take care of the problem. And they have the same concerns as everybody else as far as property values going down or how it's going to affect us. And I think that's all pretty much the same concerns as everybody else. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay.
There's nobody further. There's no others.
Okay. Do you do it by, was that for, for or against, right? Doesn't matter.
You want to ask Mr. Olivas if he wants to respond?
Okay. Mr. Olivas, would you like to respond to any of the comments that were made, testimony? Please step forward.
No, sir, I don't need to swear you in again.
First of all, the only children that ride on bike that I've seen is my nephew that lives with my mom and his friend. I have never seen any other children riding around unless it's further down the road, which I don't ever drive down that road. I only use like 50 feet into Shenandoah Trail from Thorpe Road. As for the holes on the roads, when I moved there, there was probably holes right in front of that property about 1 to 2 feet deep where I would get stuck. I did brought in about 10 loads of fill to accommodate the area of my property, which there is no holes there, just on the right next to the paved road where one of the tenant or the residents stated. As for fire on the other dump truck, there was somebody that set it on fire because that was not the only fire that was ongoing at that day of time. And I just don't remember any other ones that I can think of. That's probably it.
Okay.
And the reefers runnings, and they're at about 25 decibels, so you would need about, you would stop hearing them at about 100 feet, 150 feet, according to the decibel description. I don't have anything else.
Okay.
Thank you.
Albert, do you have any further comments? Okay, please step forward.
When they say park parallel to the Thorpe Road or Highway 320, I have a picture where you can see, unless you park like 20 feet behind the stop sign, you won't be able to see it. But I do have a picture where I took it, where it shows you can see all the way to the end of the road where it curves. Would you like to see it?
would you like to be as part of the packet?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioners. And Albert, do you have any other comments or questions or
No, Chair.
nothing at all? Okay. All right. Commissioners,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I'm going to move for the approval of zone change Z23001.
That's your motion?
That's my motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair, I just want to once again reiterate kind of the history presented by Mr. Casillas. And again, it's interesting because we did have this discussion in our prior work session, and this seems to be a very familiar timeline. February 7th, code enforcement requested a sworn affidavit from Mr. Olivas. The state of the building would not be used for commercial purposes. And on April 5th, 2 citations were issued to Mr. Olivas for improper zoning and for parking commercial service vehicles or commercial vehicles on the site. So here we are again, court date arraignments issued for May 9th. And other dates in court include July 15th. That was the pretrial hearing. So this has been through the court system, which answers the question on the court dates. Again, this would be quite often when there's a court date pending, they wait for our ruling before a decision can be made. I just want to point that out to the commission before a decision is made. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Discussion has been made. I think we're just ready for roll call.
Commissioner Zargis,
No, I consider it to be a spot zone, and the previous history on that property doesn't make me feel right about approving it.
And we all know that any decision we make here is basically based on land use ordinances, and so that's our decision.
Commissioner Montañez,
I vote no. My reasons include the concern for spot zoning. C3 would be a very high traffic zone, especially right next to a public highway. I would suggest a TIA would be required for a C3 next to a public highway. The traffic impact, again, we do rule on the consideration of the health and safety of the neighboring properties. I also, my no vote is also in concern with the timeline leading up to this hearing.
Commissioner Lear,
I would vote no, and I'll cite the same reasons my fellow commissioners have already mentioned.
Vice Chair Zerniak,
I vote no. Doesn't meet the decision criteria. It's a clear spot zone, and it's not in the best interest of the neighborhood.
Chair Acosta.
I concur with Vice Chair Dr. Zerniak and the rest of the commissioners. And my decision is also based on staff analysis, so.
Thank you.
Ready? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Olivas, and thank you for those people that attended. Give us your testimony. Next case. Case number SU 220-48-048.
Chair, does anybody need to take a break? Or are we good? We good?
Ready?
Okay.
Please raise your right hand and state your name and address for the record.
Albert Casillas, 845 North Montal Boulevard.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
And just to make sure, Lana, are you with us through WebEx?
Good morning, Albert. Yes, this is Lana, project developer at Farm Power.
All right, just making sure. Commissioners, our next case, it's going to be a special use permit. The applicant's Lana Taher, and it's for the property owners, Mr. and Mrs. Gallagher. This property is located in Hatch. It's off of 715 Chonte Avenue. It's T2 zoned. It's for a special use permit to allow a 21-acre solar generating facility, and it's going to be known as the Gallagher Solar Project. The property size, it's about 63 acres total. So the T2 in itself allows for the energy facility as long as it has an approval of an SUP. But if we do it as an administrative process, and if there is opposition from surrounding property owners, then that triggers a public hearing, and that's why we're here today. This is the location map of the 63 acres right here. You have the village of Hatch, you have Placitas right here, and then this area is known as, or I've always known it as the community of El Milagro. But Placitas, and this is Hatch right here to the east. And then that's the old highway to Deming. Here is an aerial of the property, 63 acres. You have the community of El Milagro, which is, well, we'll look at the zoning map, but basically it's all single-family residential out there. Same with the Placitas over here. Everything else around it is pretty much federal or state land. So the applicant, through the SUP, they're requesting a generating facility for 21 acres. Once the facility is constructed, it will generate virtually no traffic on a daily, monthly, or annual basis. Access to the facility will be from Chonte Avenue, which is a county-maintained paved right-of-way. Construction, it's going to last about 6 months, so there'll be some construction traffic consisting of small trucks, vans, and then delivery of equipment through tractor trailers. While the facility is under construction, the applicant, they're going to ensure that the contractors are in compliance with the SWIPs, and they'll take any necessary measures to control those particles generated by construction. Traffic, like I said it before, it's going to be only temporary during construction. And then we're all pretty much familiar with the Community Solar Act, adopted in April 2021. So we've seen a few of these cases, and we know that they're basically right now just waiting on a decision by the state to see who's going to be granted those projects. So here's a close-up of the 63 acres. When I went out there taking pictures, I basically took this road, and then so this is the pictures that you'll see are basically around this area from the property. But this is the 63 acres. You have the community of El Milagro here to the east. That's Chonte Road, which connects over here with Recuerdos. When we look at the zoning map, so that community of El Milagro is basically all T3 as well as Placitas. The subject parcel is T2, and then everything else behind it is pretty much state or federal land. And this is the railroad right-of-way right here. On your packet, you'll also see a copy of the proposed site plan. So basically, that's what the 21-acre facility is going to look like. For notification, 26 letters went out. Agenda was posted on the county website. There were signs posted on the property. The legal ad was posted in the Sun News. Like I said before, we did get a letter in opposition during the administrative phase of the SUP, which is what triggered the public hearing. Those letters should be in your packet as well. Some of the concerns stated by the property owner was access to the facility. The property, well, let me go back to the map itself. So basically, it's this property owner right here who submitted the letter against the SUP. So it's a property that fronts Chonte Road. And their concerns were, access to the property, future plans to subdivide their property, the impact of the solar facility for future affordable housing, location of facility, decrease of property values, and health concerns from electromagnetic waves. So those were some of the concerns that were stated by that property owner, who's immediately north of the subject parcel. Those were some of the signs that were posted on the property. And those were the properties that were notified. So the letter against the SUP was from this property owner right here, identified as number 3 on the notification map. So just a few pictures up here. So Chonte Road serves, the community of El Milagro. It comes off of the highway that goes to Deming. It crosses over the railroad tracks, and then it keeps on going into El Milagro and connects with Recuerdos Road. But here you see the community of Placitas, and then the village of Hatch right behind it. So this picture is basically being taken from this point right here. And then that's just looking back to where, I took that first picture. That's Chonte Road. So subject parcel is going to be over here to the left. And then looking back onto Chonte Road, heading into El Milagro. So when we're standing on Chonte, that's the access road to the property itself. And then once you're up on the hill, that's basically what the property looks like. And then just more pictures. Basically, it's all just desert terrain right now. And here we're looking north, and then you can kind of see Placitas over here. Another picture of the property. And here, so I'm standing on one of the hills up there, and I'm looking down into El Milagro. So that's the community that's east of the property. And then once you go down there to Recuerdos Road, then this is where the facility is going to be at. It's going to be on top of this hill.
There was a gravel road mentioned. Do you have a picture of that somewhere?
I can go to the aerial photos. I'm just going to go to the close-up. So one of the concerns by the property owner who submitted the letter against the SUP was, access to the 60 acres. And the site plan, currently they're showing their proposed access through this road, which this property owner currently states that's not a right-of-way for the property. That's not legal access. But the applicant still has access to this other road. But I can let the applicant kind of address the right-of-way and the legal access to the property in a bit. But the gravel road is basically what's up here right now. I went four-wheeling a little bit up there, so, but that's the only existing road out there.
Albert, how come I never get invited on these four-wheeling ventures of yours?
Huh?
I never get invited on these four-wheeling ventures.
I'll take you on my next one.
Mr. Chair, my apologies. This second access point, is that, that second access point, is that owned by the parcel owner?
There's this one right here. I mean, without looking at an exact survey, it kind of looks like it's part of this lot right here. identified as the number 3 on the property map. This property right here, it's owned by the federal government. But like I said, Ms. Taher can address the access questions right now in a bit. But no, go to the other map. So you can kind of see on this one here how both, both accesses are off of, are going through property number 3 right there.
Mr. Chair, I guess my question is, and we'll hear from the applicant, we got to determine whether or not the applicant does have their own legal access to the property that doesn't involve access point number 3.
And then when looking at the at the decisional criteria for special use permits, we got to look at section 204. We have to look at items 1 through 7. And so when we look at a potential traffic flows and impacts, like I said before, it's usually or typically only when it's during the construction phase of the project. After that, it's just going to be a very minimal traffic. The community solar project is either a commercial or residential. Sorry, I'm losing my voice here, sorry.
And Albert, the other one also on this one, since it's part of the escarpment up just actually west of Placitas, right? The engineer for this facility, did he include the topography on that, on slope and surface runoff water that could impact Placitas?
We don't have a grading and drainage plan yet because that's typically done during the construction phase of the project. But we can ask the applicant right now if there's any drawings already for that. So potential water and sewer needs, like we've seen before, it's basically just going to be during the construction phase of it. There's little impact to existing infrastructure capacities in the areas of the project. Like I said, there's no sewer or water facilities being proposed. The transportation network is only going to see a temporary impact during the construction phase, and the project's going to connect to existing electric utility infrastructure and provide additional electricity to the area. There's no evidence of any negative impacts to environmentally sensitive areas or areas of historical significance or areas that contain endangered or rare species of animal and plant life. There's not going to be any significant impact on surrounding properties. The property is surrounded by basically undeveloped land and sparse residential uses. Implementation of best management practices for the development. They're going to be, taken care of if the special use permit is approved upon the construction of the solar generating facility. So the applicant stating on the narrative that all work and inspection of work performed will be in compliance with national, state, and local best practices as outlined in guidelines and requirements and as determined by the authority having a jurisdiction. Unless otherwise noted by the authority having jurisdiction, all development and construction related work will be in compliance with OSHA and a lot of the other federal regulations and any other code of compliance for development and construction related to the activities. All equipment is going to be installed per manufacturer specifications, designed and stamped by a professional engineer and inspected by a third party independent agency. So we do believe that the request meets the decisional criteria for special use permits. Our findings, which are also included on your packet, like number 3, we've met all of the notification requirements. We had to send out 2 sets of letters, one for the administrative approval and then one for the public hearing. So 2 sets of notifications did take place for this SUP. We believe that the decisional criteria for the SUP is consistent with the health, safety, and general welfare of the residents of the county per the intent of the UDC. Per the zoning districts or the land use classification matrix, a renewable energy facility requires a special use permit in a T2 zone. And then for item number 6, a community solar facility will benefit the existing residential developments as it is a renewable energy source that has legislative approval, Senate Bill 84. So we are recommending conditional approval for this special use permit. We are recommending a perimeter fence around the facility and also a remediation and decommissioning plan submitted at the time of the building permit submittal. So those are our recommendations for the conditional approval of this case. And that's the end of our presentation. So all those recommendations they're included on your packet.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So Albert, will the solar facility be shielded by the hills that are up on that plateau? So will they be behind this ridge that we see here?
Yeah, let's look at the. So the way it's set up currently, the facility is going to be located toward the western side of the property. The picture that I took looking onto the hill was taken from this viewpoint right here, from that intersection. So it's up on the hills. How much it's going to be visible, I'm not sure.
I mean, the central portion of this is relatively flat. It looks like it almost looks like a floodway.
It's pretty hilly up there. Yes.
Is it? So the fire marshal's comment, number 2, reads, "The access gate shall not be less than 20 feet width and adhere to below standard for accessibility." What does that mean?
So basically, the access roads that are going to be on there for the facility, they're going to have to, be able to withstand the weight of a fire truck. And then the standards is basically just referring to the fire code that they have.
Okay, so they'll have to submit some kind of site plan to show the turnarounds that the fire marshal's asking for?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
And we do have the applicant through WebEx.
And Albert, just for the record, you have a road there, 26, is that a east and west road to Deming?
Yeah, that's the old highway to Deming.
Okay, so it looks like the tributaries there go contrary to the geography of the area. So their egress and ingress to that property will be exactly where?
Currently, they're showing it off of Chonte Road through this point right here. And if you go back to the aerials, it's basically, this is what the applicant's showing right now. And that's the road that's running through property number 3, who was the one who sent in the letter against the request.
So the grubbing of the land that's going to be in question, right? On the drainage plan, I saw the water and water board, let's see, water bodies here, soils. So basically, it almost approximates that the tributaries will be going in that direction towards Road 26, right?
You know what, I'm not really sure where it leads on to. You do have the railroad right here. I don't think I saw any culverts under or a bridge out there, but let me see if I have another aerial.
And I'm sure that the representative for the engineer is here present to answer some of these questions, because we certainly had problems in that area for flooding. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And we certainly do want to contribute to that.
And then Well, on your analysis, I mean, this was routed over to flood as well, and their comment was basically that they just want a grading and drainage plan at the time of the building permit.
And later on, for public input, there's been a lot of questions regarding grubbing and degradation of the soil. And we've had very comments from numerous residents, what are we going to do about it? Well, the question I always have, is the city in the county or is the county in the city? I mean, it has nothing to do with this, but I'm saying we need to address this issue somewhere along the way. But we'll take care of that later on. Go ahead and proceed.
You want to hear from the applicant?
Yes.
Lana?
Any further questions of staff, commissioners? No questions? Okay, thank you, Albert.
Good morning, this is Lana.
Good morning.
Albert, thank you so much for the presentation. You really touched on great points here, so I won't reiterate a lot of it, but I really appreciate your time today. It was very detailed.
Mr. Chair, can we get Lana sworn in, please?
We're going to have to swear you in.
Virtual swearing in.
First time virtually.
Please
Would you
state
please raise your right hand?
Please raise your right hand and state your name and address for the record.
Lana Taher, 140 Foundry Street, Baden, Ontario, Canada.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm hoping to be able to address some of the concerns. As Albert had mentioned, we do have a landowner on the northern end of the proposed project facility site, and they did raise some fantastic points, and I was able to have several conversations with Mrs. Sanchez, and she brought up some wonderful points about the right-of-way and made it very transparent to us. We were able to pull titles and actually figure out where our boundaries were able to separate. So based off of that conversation, the right-of-way as presented on the site layout that Albert had shown there does show the right-of-way going straight through their private property. I have indicated to our engineers that we require an optimization of this site layout. We have put the title from the county to understand our landowners, the Gallaghers, where their right-of-way is, and they do have a right-of-way on the west end and on the east end that we could utilize. At this point in time, before we were ever to present a site layout for construction or even construct at all, we would have a full legal boundary done and a topographic survey completed. So that right-of-way will 100% be within the right-of-way of the Gallagher landowners who are under option agreement with Saturn Power at this point in time for the proposed facility. So that right-of-way that goes right between the private property of the Sanchez's will 100% not be utilized anymore. I have provided that in writing to Mr. and Mrs. Sanchez and would of course be happy to provide that in writing to the municipality as well. So that was an oversight on our end, and that has been remedied at this point in time. And I will guarantee that that right-of-way will not be utilized on private land that we have not optioned. So that will fall in the right-of-way of the Gallagher's private land. And that would fall within construction or maintenance or operations at any time of the project as well. So we would not be utilizing that private land in any which way. But that will need to be optimized in the future as well. And further solidified with an ALTA survey or full topo survey. As well as the, I believe there was the mention of the grading and drainage plan. I did notice that on the application that was submitted by Albert. That is 100% something that Saturn Power is willing to do. We would, of course, have that completed prior to construction. I know that Albert had mentioned that that would be done later on during construction. That is absolutely correct, but we would do it before the construction phase and would have that presented to the municipality, reviewed by any member of the municipality that is required, and of course signed off and approved. So we're here and ready and willing to work with the municipality in any which way on the conditions. The decommissioning that Albert had mentioned, as well as the other conditions on this approval are very agreeable, and I'm more than ready. Saturn Power is more than ready to work with the municipality on anything on that end.
Commissioners, any questions of Ms. Rawlings?
Mr. Chair, just one question, and this again,
Ms. Rawlings, can you hear?
Lana, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Thank you for checking.
What we've seen in previous solar farms throughout the county, the grading and grubbing it has been at a minimum, but I do know that not all solar facilities are a one-size-fits-all operation. What do you see as far as the land impact? Do you have a different type of, grading and grubbing requirement in your type of facility?
Thank you for the question. So at this point in time, due to the nature of how the community solar program is run, there aren't very detailed studies that had to be put in at this point in time. So we did engage a third-party experienced consultant, which is Tetra Tech, and they were able to do desktop studies for us on wildlife habitats, cultural and archaeological resources, as well as wetlands and water bodies. And they have indicated no concerns at this point in time and haven't indicated any specific means as to how we need to move forward with any specific studies or on-site studies, but that doesn't mean that we wouldn't be willing to go on-site and adhere to any specific studies that are required. At this point in time, all that we can possibly do, if we are successful, of course, in the community solar program, is to be able to take the opinions and the consultation of our environmental consultants who are experienced in the area. We will reconsult with them to ensure that once we have more sophisticated on-site studies, that no additional concerns come up. But if concerns do come up, we would adhere to those studies and those requirements, of course.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And Commissioner Zerniak, was there any bonding assuring that had been mentioned before?
Yeah, we talked about it, but I don't know, Albert, what was the resolution to that? I mean, we couldn't put that into as a requirement.
Well, we basically just been using the same template for our recommendations. And under the remediation and decommissioning plan, the first bullet point on there, it states a soundly based plan ensuring financial resources will be available to fully decommission the site, including a financial discussion on how the company might fund an escrow account or bond. So that is the first bullet under condition number 2.
Ms. Rawlings, did you hear that?
Sorry, myself, Ms. Daher?
Did you hear
Yes.
Albert's comment regarding the requirements?
I did, absolutely, yes. So I'm sure as you've seen, there are no one-size-fits-all, of course. For decommission, we would work with the municipality and see how it is they would like to see things unravel. We usually, if there's no letter of credit or a decommissioning bond that needs to be put in place, we would usually put in a reserve ourselves to ensure that there is enough reserve to be able to decommission the project, and we would have a consultant actually do a financial analysis to give us an understanding of what that decommissioning would look like, and we would usually refresh that every 5 to 10 years throughout the operational lifestyle or operational lifetime of the project. So I'm not sure, I'm not fully clear on whether there needs to be a reserve by us or if there's a letter of credit that needs to be presented to the municipality. But again, we have 16 years plus of experience. We've really seen it all and done it all. So whatever it is that needs to be put in place, we're more than.
Are you okay with that, Commissioner Zerniak?
Yeah.
All right. All right, thank you, Ms. Rawlings. Any further questions of Ms. Rawlings from our commission? No questions. Thank you so much, Ms. Rawlings. Stand by, because we may ask you some other questions. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Procedure, where we go?
Is there anybody in opposition or in favor?
Okay.
We have one person on the list.
Okay.
Would you like me to call them?
Yes, please.
Renee Sanchez.
And I apologize. I had you right here. It says Renee Sanchez.
That's okay.
And you're the person that actually wrote that email to Albert, is that correct?
That is correct.
And
it
that was your concern regarding the gravel road going through your property?
Yes, would you like me to swear in first?
Yes.
Okay.
Please raise your right hand and
would
state
you
your
like-
name and address for the record.
Okay, it's Renee Sanchez, and the address is 7365 La Flecha Place.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good morning. It's still morning. So, yes, that was me. That is correct. I did write the email. We did originally receive the letter from Albert from the Planning and Zoning Committee, which, miraculously I opened it up because every now and then it's just junk mail, and sorry. But I opened it up and I flipped through and I thought, oh gosh, okay, that easement is not actually an easement. So I did hear the word, and Lana was very nice. I have talked with her as well. But when I flipped through the pages, and I'm just going to kind of open mine up again, under the site plan, it did alarm us because the easement that they were showing is not truly the easement. That easement was given to I believe it was to the Gallaghers, but many, many years ago, and it had to have been done within so many years. And the purpose for that was to develop that land where the Gallaghers have now the 63 some acres, was to develop that into homes, so residents. And if they didn't do that, then that easement went away. So that easement and the other road that are being called access, they're access roads in the sense that a lot of people do take four-wheelers or their trucks and they drive up there. But that's not truly a legal access onto any of those properties. And so that was my concern at first. I said, oh, wait a second. And then starting to look at it, the other issue we had was that the proposed site plan of, I think it was 23, I'm sorry, like standing up here, it's a little bit more, I have to remember the numbers a little bit harder. But the 21 acres is, if you see the site plan, I don't know, Albert, if you can pull it up, but it shows that it was touching our property at some point. Thank you. So if you take a look, let's see, isn't the mouse working? Yeah. So right here, insert, the yellow is easement. The purple obviously is not where the road is, and this is the other access road that was being sought, but that is not, again, truly an easement. That's just a road that you can see people have driven up there through the hills because it is a lot of fun. But again, this is 21 acres proposed, and we were against it. We still are against it being so close to our property. I don't see why, and Lana did address this. She said that they could push it back. And if they pushed it back, they were proposing a different easement. So I think that there was a little bit misrepresentation when they did send over the notice of public hearing to everybody again, because it was showing the same site plan versus having shown the site plan moved back with the ease. From the conversations I had with and emails I had with Lana, they were going to show that the easement was going to go out this way. So I think these people may, if they were, if they were to see the same thing I saw on my property kind of come through one of theirs, there may be more public input. I mean, I kind of feel like I'm alone on here. But so they are proposing on moving it back. I'm not sure how that's going to look out. Again, this is on top of a hill, this whole area. So if you're down here in the Placitas area or in Hatches, you're coming in from Hatch into Placitas, you're going to see the hill and anything that's on top of the hill. Right now we have vegetation, right? So natural vegetation. We don't have the tall pine trees. It's not something that's hidden. So that was my other concern, was where this is going to be a huge eyesore. The solar development that's at NMSU is about 29 acres right there, right smack between the highways. And that's a pretty big eyesore, but that's a whole different issue. This one is on top of a hill where it's going to be visible to everybody. And so that was the other issue. We are planning on developing this. This is just short of 6 acres of property that we have. We do want to develop it eventually. I mean, we are in the process of getting some plans drawn up, and we want to develop that into 6 different lots for homes. And so my concern is it's going to drop our property value. I did bring this up and they said, no, there's no property value that's going to be dropped. There aren't any studies that show that. However, it is less desirable to live next to a solar farm. And so that would decrease your number of potential buyers, which would essentially decrease your property value. So that is another concern of mine. They did send over some studies with that, however, regarding the property value stuff. But those are studies across Illinois, Indiana, and from North Carolina to Tennessee, where the vegetation is very dense. So you can just put trees there and nobody even knows because you can't see one parking lot to the other. Whereas here you can see for miles around. The other issue, of course, is the flooding. What else did I have? The other thing was the solar panels are approximately, on the plan, approximately 10 feet tall, and the fence is only going to be 6 to 8 feet tall. So, I mean, you can see a fence, right? But if you're looking at 21 acres of 10 feet tall solar panels, I don't think there's any way you can possibly hide that as from being an eyesore to the community when you have all this natural beauty out there. And as well as all the other neighbors on Recuerdos Road, how they're going to feel about it as well. Again, I think maybe some of them may have shown up had they noticed that this proposal was actually going to be closer to them. But at this point, this is the site plan that we're going off of.
Ms. Sanchez, would you please point to the road that is in question, the gravel road?
Well, this right here. This is our property. This one that neighbors it. It's number 3 on the on one of the pages here. But that's ours. And this is where, I mean, that was first what caught our attention, right, to look into this, because that's not an actual easement.
And the other one also is, you mentioned legal access to what road?
To Chonte, well, when I brought this up, that was not the easement, that's not a legal easement, Lana went ahead and at this point, I mean, I don't have my email in front of me, but they were going to propose to move this as far back as possible, as well as having the access road instead of here, somewhere over here. But again, I don't remember the exact, I mean, I would have to say this road just because that's already a road. So you know, you're creating some other alerts that maybe neighbors aren't aware of at that point. The other thing, when I did start doing some research into negatives and positives of living next to solar farms, is that some of them can produce some electromagnetic waves. There are some that make some noises, and they can create headaches and medical issues for people that live within a certain area of them. And so again, that does affect us because we are planning on developing that, as well as the other neighbors. If that does get pushed back, how will that affect them and their health?
Ms. Rawlings? Ms. Rawlings, are you there?
I think her last name is Taher. Taher?
Yes, correct. Hi, is that me?
Did you hear the comments that Ms. Sanchez has mentioned regarding the access and the question she had on the height of the solar panels?
Yes, I did. Am I allowed to respond?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Renee. Again, it's great to hear from you. And thank you for coming in today. As Renee had mentioned, if it's all right, I'll just go point by point with what she had brought up, if that's all right. So Renee or Ms. Sanchez was absolutely correct. We did have phone conversations about optimizing our site layout. She had mentioned that the property that they own is on the northern end. So we did speak, and also that of course, the right of way was going through their property, which I appreciate again that you pointed out there. So while we were pulling out the titles for the Gallagher landowners, I did have our engineers push back the solar site as far down south as they could possibly take it. So it would basically be located on that west end, but further south, to see if we can take it back as further as possible. As you all had noticed, the site is quite undulating itself. Taking it back further would put it higher up. And this is something that Renee did mention, that if you do take it further back, it would be more visually, I guess, present, which is why that in that area that it's located right now, it is on a further dip. So there are pros and cons to pushing it back or keeping it where it is. I did mention to Renee, of course, with this permit application or without it, even we are more than ready to work on this site layout as we move down the line. So if there is a right of way that we pull up through a title, we're willing to shift it if she would like it shifted as well. If there is any sort of tree screening or fencing that she would like be put around the property, we would be more than willing to work with her and Mr. Sanchez. Or if there's any sort of visual screening that she would like around her property on the north end. If it's a matter of panel height versus fence height on our end, of course, the distance does come into consideration. So we're more than willing to put up visual screening of their choice around their own property if that's helpful, as well as our own property. And that could be in terms of vegetation or fencing or some sort of land to fencing sort of camouflage. There are multiple ways that we could go around this. We could play with the height of the fencing. There are ways that we can shift this site layout so that it works. Again, the site layout is not for construction yet. We do have some time to be able to have our engineers work on it. So we are ready and willing to have the panels, which are 2.7 meters at this point in time, or estimated to be 2.7 meters, which is about 8 feet. And that would be across the board for all of the panels. And again, we are ready to shift these panels further south. The last conversation that we did have, she did mention that moving it further south would put it on a higher elevation, which is why I chose to not present that updated site layout here today, just because it wasn't finalized with, I guess, all final comments from the landowners. I still want to give them the opportunity to put their vision into it as much as we possibly can at this point in time. So I do understand your concerns on the visual site there. I please don't take this as a final site layout. We are more than willing to work with yourselves, Mr. and Mrs. Sanchez, to figure out a way of either putting up screening on your property and our property or around the fencing, or figure out some sort of visual screening that could assist. If that means shifting back to solar site, we would do that. If that means adding additional visual screening or additional layers of visual screening, we will do that. I don't want you to take this as a last site layout that we are putting our foot down on at all in any which way. So we're more than willing to add in your input again and continue our consultation as we move forward throughout the process here. Moving on to the property value, yes, you're right. The studies that we did send your way, I had reached out to SIA, the Solar Association, and CANREA, the Canadian Renewable Energy Association, and their major associations in renewable energy and solar across North America. They did indicate to me that the studies that I provided are what they have available at this point in time, just due to the density of renewable energy within those states. So there haven't been any studies that they were able to provide to me within New Mexico at this point in time. It's very difficult to be able to gauge property value. As you had mentioned, it's a very opinionated sort of study to conduct. So it's very difficult for me to say that the individuals that are coming up to you are going to be for or against solar, or for the site of solar or against solar. It's a very opinionated niche topic. So it's very difficult for me to tell you guaranteed that no one or everyone will be for or against solar that come your way. I mean, myself personally, I grew up with a lot of renewable energy and climate change and solar and wind at the forefront of all of our conversations. So now being time for me to purchase my own house, I am looking at neighborhoods that do have renewable energy incentives and renewable energy included, and that's a very positive thing for me. Where for others it might not be so positive. It is a very opinionated point. But based on the studies that we have found, we haven't seen And the experience that we have over the past 16 years with the hundreds of megawatts that we've developed, we haven't seen or heard from neighboring landowners that a decrease in property value has been a concern or has happened. And that's the maximum information that I could provide. There is no way I can guarantee that every landowner that comes your way could or could not like solar. It's a very difficult point for me to promise at this point in time without actually experiencing it in New Mexico. So that's on the property value side. And the EMF that you had mentioned, the electromagnetic fields, I did respond in that letter to you regarding, I think it was solar batteries as well as the inverters that you had concerns on. And I would like again to reiterate that this facility will not have a battery energy storage system. It's not required for a community solar project to operate optimally. So this proposed project does not incorporate battery storage in the design in any which way, so there's no concern there. Regarding the inverters, so the inverters themselves will emit 60 hertz of frequency, and that's equivalent to the recommended frequency across North American electrical grids. So the solar inverters are required to meet that same very low level of electromagnetic radiation that all electric equipment must meet. So that frequency that the inverters will emit would be similar to that of any electrical product, and that would you would come in contact with on a daily basis, and that would include your electrical appliances, your household products like your refrigerator, your microwave, your dishwasher, your power lines, your substations. And as with any electrical products, that intensity of the radiation, that's strongest at its source. So meaning when you're in direct contact with the item, and then the further you move away from that source, which in this case would be the inverter, the intensity of that radiation does decrease by the square of the distance. So with the design and location placement of the proposed solar facility, where it sits right now, that isn't even with the setbacks that we're hoping to incorporate. You wouldn't be able to really gauge what that distance would be to surrounding neighbors enough from the inverters. It's not possible to measure that electromagnetic field based on how far placed it is at this point in time. In addition to that, we do have our operation maintenance team and our engineering and construction operations team that are constantly out in the thick of it with our facility operations for years on end. Again, the situation where we haven't seen any studies come up, we have adhered to the hertz and the radiation requirement levels that are required across North America, and we would ensure that by utilizing proper equipment specialists and ordering that equipment from specialists who would be able to provide us with that specific PERT requirement. I believe those are the three main points that you had brought up, Renee. I'm not sure if I missed anything there.
Yes.
Lovely. Again, I'm here if there are any additional questions. I know that I've reiterated that so many times, but I'm here for calls, I'm here for conversations, I'm here for meetings. I don't want you to feel as though this application process is it. I'm more than happy and willing, Saturn is more than happy and willing to work on the site layout and to work on any concerns moving forward. This isn't a one and done situation, so we are here. I'm sure that more studies are going to come up if we are successful in this community solar project, and with those studies, more information is going to come out on the environmental pieces and on the engineering pieces, and we will have to update this layout anyway. So we are here to incorporate your thoughts and visions into this site layout point in time to make sure that you're comfortable with it, and add any visual screening wherever you feel is necessary, whether that be on your property or ours or both. And whatever that may look like, we would work on it as well.
Okay, thank you. And again, the visual screening, I mean, specifically for our property, obviously, because we're right there, but really, I think everybody that is coming in is just affected because it's wide open out there. There's no hiding it, you know? That's really it. And so with no hiding it, I truly, that does bring my concerns about just the true property values that could decrease because of that. So anyway, thank you. Yep. Do you have questions for me? Or is that it?
Don't sit down.
Don't sit down. Okay, I'll wait.
Ms. Sanchez, did you get the right answers from Ms. Rawlings?
Yes, Ms. Taher. She does.
Satisfied
Yeah, she
with
was
that?
very nice, and she did give me, she did respond to every question I had. Like I said, we were happy with them being able to move it back further. But again, moving it back further, it is hillier, so that means, what are you going to do to hide 8-foot to 10-foot solar panels by the time you're done building everything up from a whole community down below of 21 acres worth of solar panels.
And if you have an opportunity to travel on I-25 South and exit to I-10 westbound, the university, you'll get a better idea as to what the solar panels will look like and the type of fencing and the height of the fencing.
Right.
So before you go back north, take
Yes, sir.
pictures and see if that's agreeable with you. Okay?
I did see that, sir. I did. I actually I drive by there a lot. I'm on the north side of town, and my mom and everybody's on the south side of town, so I travel that road a lot. To say that I've gotten kind of, I still see it, right? But this is low versus being up on a hill where it's visible to everybody. So you really have to be on that road or on one of those highways to look down and see it. The NMSU one is more hidden versus this one that's going to be up on a hill for everybody to see.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm confused about something.
Yes.
Do you control the access to their property?
No,
You
we do
don't?
not. But the proposed access that they have here is not, we have had we've had a survey done and recorded. It's been in there for many years. And these are not the access point. Where they were showing here on the overall site plan where the mouse is right now.
Right.
And this road here is being called an access road just because people have driven on it. Because right now there's no fencing. This is just wide open. And so people do access this to ride around on the hills. So these are not access roads or easements into the Gallagher's property. And so and I do not control their easement. And so I believe Ms. Taher did say that they would bring it over here. Now, I don't know if that's an easement over here, but I can tell you that these ones here are not.
So you're saying they're not legal access?
Legal access.
Yeah, the problem is if the Gallaghers have allowed people to use those to get to the property, they could claim that it is access, just by use. I mean, that's New Mexico law.
Prescribed easement.
Prescribed easement.
Gotcha.
In
There
other words,
is,
the way it reads is that if there's a stop sign on a four-way and somebody decided to shortcut the stop sign and exit either way, and it's been going on, then it's a prescribed easement.
gotcha. No, I'm sorry, I do have an answer for you
Okay.
as well. There is, in our survey, and I wasn't trying to be sneaky about this at all, because it's going to sound like that. There is a legal easement for them right here where this mouse is. There is legal easement on here. However, I believe that Ms. Taher put the easement access road over here because they were going to be pushing back their proposed site plan.
I'm sorry, when you say push back, you mean push to the south or move it towards the south?
Correct, because at this point, that's right on our property.
Okay.
So
There are viable alternatives, that's the point.
correct.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Rawlings. I have a question, though. On Shippo, Albert, the Pito Manso tribe used to travel in that direction quite a bit. Did Shippo send any statement other than what we have here?
Chair, I didn't get any comments from that or from that office, but I can defer to Ms. Taher and see if she has any information on that.
All right, thank you. All right, Commissioners, any procedure on that would be, is there anybody else on the list for testimony?
No, sir.
All right, okay. Any questions of staff, Commissioners? No questions, all right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve SU 22-048.
Do I hear a second?
Excuse me. conditional approval.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Based on the recommendations of staff.
Based on all recommendations of staff?
Yep, thank you.
Chair, I just want to, just to summarize some of the items that were discussed, there were talks about moving the site further south, and then there were also talks about buffering on the northern property line. I don't know if the P&Z wants to consider those items as well.
Ms. Rawlings, did you hear that?
Yes, I did. And again, more than happy to continue optimizing the site layout and present it to Mr. and Mrs. Sanchez and the municipality as well to move that site further south and utilize the proper right-of-ways for the Gallaghers, as well as adding any visual screening that's required.
Okay. Does the commission understand the motion? Any
Mr.
questions?
Chair, I do.
Do I hear a second?
Before, actually, I'll second just for discussion. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
Mr. Chair, but before I just, one concern that I do, and I don't know if amendment or a friendly amendment would be necessary here, but when, staff is recommending further south, I mean, that could be, that kind of language is kind of broad in my opinion. I would have, I would have, I'd feel more comfortable if, in this case, either seeing a resubmitted site plan or just having on record the intent of the applicant and how far south they're going to go, how far south that they're going to move this site plan. And I can't answer why that is a concern to me, to have just language like further south in this ruling. Thank you.
I mean, I don't know what the answer to that is. I mean, they have to, they'll have to submit a final site plan with a grading permit. So that'll show the shift. And I assume they'll do that in discussion with staff?
With staff and the surrounding property owners.
Right.
I'll just point out that under T2, setbacks for principal buildings, or for any buildings, it's going to be 25 feet on the primary frontage and 5 feet on the rear and the side,
So, the case in point, thank you for bringing that up. This, on this site plan on the, so that would be on the south end. You're only showing a 5-foot setback requirement there.
on this site plan, and once again, I'll probably refer to Ms. Taher, but I believe the red line is the property line, and then the yellow line is just kind of like what they're proposing for setbacks. And I don't quite remember, Ms. Taher, if you had a 25-foot setback going all around the property, or if it was 30 feet.
The reason I asked, that does appear to be a smaller setback requirement than, than facing the north end.
On the northern end there, I do recall, and sorry, I do not have the site layout in front of me at this point in time, but I do recall there's about a 95-foot setback, not a foot, 95-meter setback, I would like to say, from the north end, but that's the furthest point. I'm not sure what the closest point at that point would be, but if there are specific setbacks that we need to adhere to, we will redesign the site layout to adhere to those setbacks. And if I may as well, on the south end comment, I do agree with that. It is very vague context to be put into place. If I may suggest that we would continue consultation with concerned landowners as well as the municipality to optimize the site layout, to ensure that we meet all restrictions or all requirements or all setbacks that are necessary. As Ms. Sanchez had mentioned, further south could mean more visual ability, which could be worse. So I don't want to promise more south if that's not something the landowner would like. So I would like to suggest that we would optimize the site layout in consultation with the county as well as with surrounding landowners or concerned landowners to I guess finalize the site layout prior to construction.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm not going to call you Mrs. Rawlings, but thank you very much.
Are you okay with that?
Yes.
All right.
I just want to add Mr. Chair, I just want to add a friendly amendment that that any changes to the site, to the location of the site plan will be, will be with consultation to the county, or with county staff.
And property owners.
Yes, and the property owners.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's going to require a second or just an approval from you,
Put
Mr.
that in as a
Commissioner.
condition.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you hear that, Albert?
Yes, Chair, yes.
Okay. Does everybody understand, Commissioner, do you understand the motion? We have a second?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Roll call, please.
Eileen?
Commissioner Montañez,
Yes.
Commissioner Zargis,
Yes.
Commissioner Lear,
Yes.
Vice Chair Zerniak,
Yes.
Chair Acosta.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rawlings, and
Wonderful. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
okay, proceeding on to case number SU 23003. Albert, are you ready?
Once again, I'll check. Does anybody need a break? No? All right.
And the applicant is here.
Yes, Mr. Rollins. He should be through WebEx. Yes.
Hi there. Yeah, this is Tarek Rawlings. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Good morning. Albert, can you please state your name and address for the record?
Albert Casillas, 845 North Motel Boulevard.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Commissioners, our last case today is going to be a special use permit. The property owners, Mr. and Mrs. Barraza, and the applicant is Chris Gracia. The property is located in Doña Ana on Thorpe Road, 641 East Thorpe Road. Existing zoning is a C2 designation, and the request today is to reduce the direct line measurement requirement of 300 feet to a residential area in order to operate a cannabis retail establishment. So the way the code is right now, it doesn't really matter what the zoning is on your property. If it's commercial, if you're within 300 feet of any residential area or dwelling, and this is from property line to property line between those properties, that you do need to get approval of a special use permit to reduce that distance of 300 feet. This is the location map here. We have I-25 to the east, and then we have Thorpe Road, and this is going to be the subject parcel right here. So it is in the middle of Doña Ana. So, when we look at the aerial, we see that that part of Thorpe Road, there's a whole strip of C2 zoning. You're going to have other retail businesses along that corridor. But the property right now, it's a little bit less than an acre. It's got that C2 zoning. We did have that retail building constructed in 2002. It's almost 7,000 square feet. It consists of 3 retail units within that entire building. But for the cannabis establishment, we're basically looking at about 2,400 square feet. Previous businesses on this property have included coffee shops. We've had restaurants, there's meat markets, barber shops, flower shops, and a couple years back, I was able to find a business registration also for a cannabis medical dispensary out there. Water and wastewater, they're provided by Doña Ana Mutual, and of course the access is from Thorpe Road. And here's just a close-up of the property. Basically, this is the entrance coming in from Thorpe. This is the facility itself, broken into 3 different units, and then we got the ponding area on the back. When we look at the zoning map, it's basically all C2 along the whole block. So we have Thorpe right here, and then there's the residences towards the rear of the property. We have I-25, and then there's a mobile home park right across from Thorpe. So this application was submitted early in January, and of course, to reduce that distance requirement of 300 feet. The applicant's proposing operating hours from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays. They're talking about 8 employees on site during operating hours, and then, of course, additional employees may be added at a later point. They're estimating about 10 customers on average are expected per hour during the operating hours. And right now, currently, there's about 98 parking spaces. When we look at not just this site, but the one next to it, they're both connected. So total, there's about 98 parking spaces, and then just on this 1 acre, there's about 36. No significant improvements or modifications to the existing retail structure are being proposed or anticipated. And here's just a survey and a site plan of the property. 20 letters of notification were mailed out to area properties. Those were mailed on February 14th. Notice was posted on the Sun News, signs were posted on the property. And no correspondence in favor or opposition was received for the SUP. Some signs of the pictures of the signs that were posted on the property. So we have one sign posted close to Thorpe, and this one was right on the window of the retail unit. And those were the properties that were notified. So currently, this is what the 3 units look like. We have there's the meat market over here on the western portion. On the middle, I forgot what the name of the business was, but they do a lot of products like with tajin. So it's pretty tasty. And I believe there's a coffee shop in there now. And then this is going to be the side of the cannabis retail store, and it's where the Cactus Flats restaurant used to be. And I was taking a picture just through the window. I mean, there's some glare, but that's what the facility looks like on the inside. Now we're just looking at the parking area. That's Thorpe, and that's the entrance to the property. And then looking back from the entrance of that driveway. And then looking, this is west on Thorpe. And then just looking back towards I-25. There's a Family Dollar right next to it on the east side. And then that's one of the homes that's within the 300 feet. It's about 160 feet. I think I've included a map in there on your case analysis. So it's well within 300 feet of the property. And then we got the ponding area here on the left. And that's just a picture of the ponding area.
So that's, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. So Albert, that's behind the building, right?
Behind the building, yes.
Okay.
We got the ponding area. And on the ponding area, you saw one of our conditions on there. One of the comments from Flood was to fix the fence, fix the gate, because there's an opening in there. So for SUPs, we look at the decisional criteria, and then we also look at Section 502G for cannabis establishments. We have the 7 items that we need to address for deciding on special use permits. And then we have the section of the code that talks about cannabis establishments. So basically, you can't be within 300 feet of a school or daycare center. And then if it's going to be a retail facility, you have to be 300 feet from any residential area. And this is a section that's calling out the special use permit. And then just the definition of cannabis retailer. And then just additional information, we know that New Mexico House Bill was approved back in 2021, adopting those rules and regulations for cannabis establishments. We adopted our rules on December 14th of 2021, and the retail sales for cannabis started on April 1st of 2022. And like I said it before, the closest home on the rear of the property it's about 163 feet from the cannabis retail building. It's closer from property line to property line. It's just a street dividing them. But from the building to the house, it's about 163 feet. Other uses allowed under the C2, I mean, we're looking at commercial laundries, convenience stores, gas stations, wineries, tap rooms, bars, pubs, taverns, those kinds of uses. And just our cheat sheet here for cannabis establishments and zoning. So under C2, it is a permitted use, but of course, if it's within 300 feet, then you got to get that special use permit. When looking at the decisional criteria, traffic flows and impacts, I mean, there's only going to be 8 people employed on site. There are 2 access points to the premises from East Thorpe Road and Worzium Avenue. Worzium's the street on the rear of the property, and the parking lot can handle 36 cars. The need for new commercial activity, well, I mean, we had the Cannabis Regulation Act that passed and was approved by the state, and also our own cannabis establishment regulations that was approved in December of 14th. The applicants basically, they're going to contract with local growers, and this is going to be their location of retail sales for the operation. Doña Ana Mutual, domestic, they provide the water and wastewater to the property. We do believe that there is existing infrastructure in place to support the proposed use, and no evidence of any endangered or rare species of animal and plant life in the area has been submitted. The impact of the SUP on surrounding properties, I mean, we looked at the area, it's pretty much all commercial out there. When you drive around Thorpe, you're going to see gas stations, you're going to see meat markets. There's an O'Reilly Auto Parts out there, Family Dollars, Dollar Generals, Chachi's Restaurant. The facility itself, you're going to have to meet all security measures as required by the Cannabis Control Division, and that includes security, alarm systems, digital video surveillance, commercial grade logs, and limited access areas as well. The applicant has stated that their operating hours will be from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays, and those are within within the parameters of what we have in our code. Applicant will implement any best management practices that are identified, noted, and included in the reviews and conditions required for the SUP. And if there's going to be any remodeling of the existing building, then that's going to happen. Typically, what we've done in the past, before we sign off on a business registration for cannabis retail, we usually have the fire marshal and Sean, the building services, they'll do a walkthrough of the facility, and they'll talk with the applicant and see if there's any need for any interior remodel permit. So based on that analysis, we do believe that the applicant and the SUP meets the decisional criteria of 204D. Our staff findings, they're included in your packet, but we do believe that it meets the decisional criteria for special use permits. Also, that the cannabis retail requires a special use permit if it's in a C2 zone, but it's less than 300 feet from a residential area. This establishment is not within 300 feet of a school or daycare center. And also that the P&Z has the authority to approve the SUP and apply any conditions that they feel necessary. That's the end of our presentation, and we stand for questions, and the applicant's available as well.
So, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
So the problem is the distance to buildings behind the property, not in front of it.
The rule basically says any residential area within 300 feet.
No, I understand, but the problem is behind it, not in front of it. That's what's creating the need, right?
For a special use permit.
Yes.
So is there, in terms of your recommendations, is there any way to make that rear, because there's a rear access, is there any way to make that emergency access only?
Well, I mean, that could be a recommendation from the P and Z, but I'm not even sure if, you know, a fire truck might be able to fit on that western side.
Oh,
It looks pretty narrow. Let me try to zoom in.
But so at the top of the graphic, is that Wertheim Road?
Yes.
So what I'm saying is, would it, the problem that I see is that you might begin to get traffic coming in on Wertheim Road to come around to park in front.
Well,
So would it make sense to make this access an emergency access only?
I mean, that could be a condition. What I'm thinking, just off the top of my head, it's going to be, you know, enforcing that, because it's not just the cannabis retail. You also got the Family Dollar, who shares the same parking lot.
Okay.
You got the meat market, and you
Got
got the
Got it.
other.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Albert, on the agency comments, the Flood Commission said that the fence around it, can you go back to that slide picture? It says that, the fence around it needs to be fixed, right?
That's correct.
And then zoning code says that there's a missing gate in the back of the building in the pond area. We have warned them in the past, and they have not fixed it. Is it fixed now, or?
No, this picture was taken over the past weekend, and it hasn't, but that is a condition that staff is proposing for the approval of this SUP.
Yes.
Albert, couple of questions. Would you recommend adding a little bit more of a buffer zone right there in front of the fence to that street? That's question number one. I mean, we did require a little landscape buffer in one of our approvals right there in the Tortugas location. The second, just because of the vicinity to residential, the second question I have here, and I saw it on Google Earth and I'm seeing it here, is would they be required to remove that razor wire? We've been back and forth about razor wire in the county. Or does that type of zoning allow for?
No, I mean, just the fact that there's residences adjacent to this property, the razor wire wouldn't be allowed. So they will have to address the fence. We would probably have to talk with building services to see if even just the addition of a door would require any type of permit. But they would have to go out there and assess the condition of the existing fence and see if that might trigger an actual building permit for that commercial fence. But no, but you are correct. The razor wire next to residential areas will not be, are currently not allowed. Adding a buffer on the rear of the property, I think the one in Tortugas might have been a little bit different because that was just the only business on site. This one, we have multiple units out there. And then this is towards the rear of the property. It's not even towards the front. But like I said before, I mean, if you feel that that's a condition and maybe just to block off the view of that ponding area, that's more than acceptable or within your decision-making process.
Because I'm not trying to block off the view of the actual establishment itself, because there are two other establishments there that are not cannabis, they're not cannabis businesses. But I just wanted to ask. I mean, it seems that at one point there was either a buffer required or the property owner took that upon themselves with what they have there. So, yeah, just wanted to ask. Thank you.
Okay, Albert, any further questions of staff, commissioners? There is none. Thank you, Albert.
And we do have the applicant as well on the phone, on the line.
Okay.
Chris? Yes, sir. Oh, you made it all the way down. Well, Mr. Gracia's here. He's the applicant. Mr.
Oh, the applicant is present, okay. Would you please step forward? We're going to swear you in.
Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Name is Chris Gracia, 21272 Rita Place.
Do you affirm the do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Chris Gracia. I'm the co-owner of the Matchbox Cannabis Company, and we are the applicants for this SCP. I was going to go over just a couple of the talking points that were in our original application, but I think I'd probably prefer to use some of my time to address some of those concerns that you brought up as far as the buffering and the rear access around the building. To begin with the rear access, in the site plan or in the overview, the access around the building on the west side is not the 20-foot required for fire department access. The other part of that is that, so then there's actually some sort of a blockade, so you couldn't get around that portion anyways to come to the front. If you came off of Warheim, you wouldn't be able to access the front of that anyways. I think you'd have to go all the way back around to that street, the access street, and go around the Family Dollar. The fence, actually, we'll absolutely fix that. We have no problems with that. It is a safety hazard. It's a deep pond, and obviously we get a bunch of rain here, and so we're absolutely willing to fix that to provide safety for the neighborhood. We can also, we don't own this building. We're leasing the unit, so we'd have to talk to the property owner about removing any kind of concertina wire or anything like that. But we're willing to do whatever it is that we need to do to get this this approval. None of these are too onerous to accomplish. As far as the buffer, if you're standing on Warnheim looking at the rear of our property, the driveway access that you're talking about to the left of that, if you're facing the rear of our property, that is fully treed. So you don't see the parking lot through that area between the access to our building and the access to the Family Dollar. That's completely treed between those two access points. And then to the right of that is where we have that the pond, and that's got a chain link fence, but the chain link fence on the other side of that, closer to our building, also has bushes and trees. So there is some buffering behind the pond that I think is pretty sufficient. But again, if there's additional requirements, we can work with the property owner to meet those buffering requirements. I think I've touched on all the concerns that you have. If I haven't, please let me know and I'll try to address those as well. But I would just like to take the rest of my time just to say that, this is an existing retail space in an established commercial zone. We don't see that it would have any additional impacts other than positive impacts. We, based on the recent business that was there, we're going to increase our staffing, providing an additional 300% to 500% increase in jobs, all well-paying retail jobs, and a couple of management positions. So we, my son and future daughter-in-law, live in Radium Springs area. I own a home there, and we are part of this community. We want to be a positive part of this community. We realize the cannabis industry is new, and it takes some getting used to. I appreciate the heavy work that the county's done to establish those time, place, and manner regulations, and I also appreciate the forethought of seeing that some of these restrictions are not necessarily an end-all be-all as far as restricting our use, understanding that we have these community commercial zones within these neighborhoods, and so I would just appreciate the forethought of allowing this process to consider those. Like I said, we are all just closed by saying we're a family business. My son and I own it together. That's my family back there, and we are committed to the area. We love Dona Anya. We love, we go to Chachi's, the best restaurant around, and And so we just want to be a positive contribution to the area and increase economic viability in the area as well. I'd like to, unless you have questions for me, I'd like to turn it over to Tarek Rollins for any more technical questions you may have.
Thank you.
Any questions of, no questions? All right. Thank you. Is there anybody in favor or opposed to this case?
Yeah, we have two comments. The first one would be Renee Sanchez.
Wait, excuse me. Just in terms, we should let his representative speak first.
Virgil?
He has a land use consultant.
Mr. Rollins, are you online?
I am online, yes. If you can hear me.
Yes. Do you have any comments or?
Yeah, I didn't know if you want me to go now, I'd be happy to start. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate
Wait
some.
just a second. We need to swear you in.
Of course, yeah.
Please state your name and raise your right hand.
Tarek Rawlings.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Costa and Commissioners. My name is Tarek Rawlings. I'm a land use consultant hired by Mr. Gracia. I produced the narrative that's included in your agenda packet for this special use permit. I really appreciate you guys taking the time, hearing some of what Mr. Gracia just said. I have to reiterate most of those concerns around the fencing and the flood swale pond in the back. I think that's something we were, it's a completely reasonable request to fix that fence just to create that kind of contiguous perimeter around it for safety and otherwise. I think it was also really helpful to see the noticing radius for this proposal did send direct mailed notice to the two nearest residential properties to the north, just across Wertheim. They both received that mailing. They're both really close to this property and the posted notice, and we received no type of public comment, whether in support or opposition. But my point being that we didn't hear from those two residential uses, which in my mind was kind of the main focus and concern of this request. So with the intervening distance, the pond being between this establishment and that nearest residential use, having that distance, the trees in the way, the fence in the way, the actual pond in the way itself, I think that creates a bit of a visual buffer. Just speaking to the commissioner's previous comment maybe about a landscaping buffer, I think we'd be happy to try to mitigate any visual impacts, but I think that there's also a good point being made in record that this is a commercial property more or less surrounded by other commercial properties, and that visual screening, while potentially helpful for maybe providing that buffer, is not going to stem like the presence of commercial impacts and commercial visual impacts, things like that. I also just wanted to point out Mr. Casillas's helpful presentation of the other uses that are allowed in the C2 zone that do not require exceptions to that 300-foot standard, some being taverns and other types of very similar retail or commercial uses. I agree with Mr. Gracia that this category of use is rather new for New Mexico and the rest of the country in some senses. And I think that if we look at the actual impacts, operating characteristics, and really just the nature of this proposal, it's extremely substantially similar to really any of those listed uses. And so I found that really helpful in the staff analysis, just to see those listed C2 uses. Again, we're happy to comply with the condition of approval requested by the flood department. The fence is something we would be happy to fix. And just reiterating that this is, I think, aside from some of the points made already by Mr. Gracia, I think this is a great opportunity for a new commercial use in an area that's already supported similar commercial uses. I do think that just like Mr. Gracia is saying, this is going to add local jobs. It's really something that we've landed on this area and this property as the result of pretty robust research of the area, looking at available properties, looking at compatible zoning. and ultimately looking at, proximity to a client base that desires this type of use. And really all of our research points to this property as being a great fit, not just in the desired use that we would be promoting in that and using that space for, but really it's helpful it's also compatible in terms of land use zoning. So just in the nature of how this request is really just getting close to a residential use, I think that we've really adequately noticed those residential uses, and that we've proposed something that's, I think, very compatible with the subject property and surrounding properties. And with that, I'm available for any questions that commission might have.
Commissioners, any questions of Mr. Rawlings? No questions. Thank you, Mr. Rawlings, for your testimony.
Thank you, Chair.
And stand by.
Renee Sanchez.
Hi again. Okay.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Renee Sanchez, and it's 7365 La Flecha Place.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hello again. So I am a parent, and I have two young children. One is in elementary school and the other one is in middle school. We do drive this road. We're just within 5 minutes of this road, so we drive this every day, 4 or 5 times a day, well, 6 times a day, I guess, to get back, right? So my concern for this is just, there are so many, I'm not here to debate like anything else on the cannabis stuff, because that's a whole different thing. My concern really is the 300-foot requirement that's there. I know that I keep hearing that there are other businesses that are within those bounds. However, those other ones do have limits of numbers of licenses they hand out per area, right? Like you can only have so many liquor licenses in so many areas or whatever it is. So that's my concern. The other thing is, why have a 300, it's more of a question, I guess, or I don't know. Why have a 300-foot limit, minimum requirement to any residence or daycare or school, et cetera, if we can just go in and ask for permission to keep getting closer? Then what's the point in having a limit? Because then they could start doing that in a lot of places. I'm wondering what kind of precedents that could have in the future to allowing these. Obviously, there's a 300-foot limit for cannabis for a reason. I didn't make up the law. I didn't put that rule out there, but I do believe that there should be a good-sized buffer like that. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez.
Fred De Leon. Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record.
That'd be Fred De Leon, 4404 Calle de Nubes, out there on 70.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Please get closer to the mic.
Yeah.
And your last name again, please?
De Leon. My last name's De Leon.
De Leon.
Okay. Yeah, and as of this moment, this is the first time that I've met or actually seen Chris. He had originally called me and asked if I can give him a contact to the owner of the property, which I did. And he had mentioned what he was going to plan to do, and I said, fantastic. So this is something that, we need in the area, a form of a business that's going to attract a lot of people. And I feel that this could only do good for the community as far as any type of retail sales that we have going on. And in regards to the rear portion of the building, I'm not sure if it's the north or south, as far as the back side of the building, we need that space back there, because we do receive semis that come to the back and drop off product for the carniceria. My business that we have is in the center. It's called the Spicy Bean, and what we do is we provide specialty drinks. We also do food processing, which is something that we call chilazo, and we distribute that throughout all these stores like Fiesta, Lowe's, the Union Draft Houses, Oasis, many different sports bars and whatnot. But I do feel that this is a type of business that we do need in the area, and solely for growth of the business as well. It'll not only bring business that he had will bring business to us and the next door neighbor and the Dollar General, okay? And maybe all of the surrounding businesses as well, you know, but I'm just here really wanted to observe what was going on, but when we were all talking, or you guys were all talking about the access in the back and the fencing, it does provide coverage with all the trees that are existing right now in the back area, so you literally cannot see houses at all, okay? And, but we do need that access to receive semis. I have, you know, semis that deliver products to us, you know, for wholesale. And we also, like I mentioned, have it for the Carniceria, you know, so Matt, which was the Cactus Flats, which is not there anymore, he did receive trucks as well, you know, so that's the one thing that I can say is that we do need the access for it and not just to close it off only for fire emergencies. This is something that we need, and also the, I think it's the south side or the east side. It's on the opposite side of the building. There is absolutely no access for a vehicle to try, just to drive around. It's not wide enough. It's just the corner that's there. You just cannot make that turn in a vehicle. You have to just pretty much do this thing, like a star just to get out, you know, but I hope I'm making much sense here, but I do feel that having them, you know, along with us and the Carniceria and all the surrounding businesses will be a benefit to us all.
That's helpful.
Yeah, okay?
So, Mr. Chair, on the right, facing the building, looking to the west side of the building, is there full access to the back there? If I were driving there and I'm looking to the left, can I drive to that side of the building and make my way to the back?
Not at all. Not at all.
There's some
So what
space
you
there.
have there is you have on the frontage road or that road, which is Thorpe Road, you have that easy ice, okay? And what they did was they have their water line coming all the way to the side where all that gravel's at, and the side of the building where you're talking about. Yeah, so there's a water line there that if any, I can imagine, if any vehicle with a certain amount of tonnage on there, is just gonna crack it all up. Yeah, so, but as far as any type of access, there's no real access to the side of that because of the corner that you'd have to take, you know, so.
Thank you, Mr. Leon. Any questions? No questions? Thank you very much.
Okay, hey, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I mean, I do believe it's appropriate to ask, especially questions on the access and from the back, because with any retail establishment, be it cannabis or not, I mean, you are going to see an increase. You are going to see some kind of increase in traffic and being so close to residential. I just want to make sure that there's not. I mean, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see any of these access points or this entire parcel turning into some kind of a thorough street, you know, to Worthiam Avenue, if I'm pronouncing that well, if I'm pronouncing that right, because that does start to turn into somewhat of a nuisance to some of the residents on that street. So that's why I just wanted to ask that. Regarding what we're asking for as far as, you know, or what I personally asked for as far as buffer requirements or the fencing, this is the first time that we have approved an SUP before, or, you know, within the 300-foot restriction, but that building wasn't being shared with two other business establishments there, and that raises the question: whose responsibility is it? I mean, it seems that we're putting it on the applicant to repair the fence and to repair, but you know, would it be their responsibility if it was not a cannabis establishment? I appreciate that they're just going to get it done regardless of whose it is, but this is definitely this case is definitely different just because they're not the only occupants of that building. With that, I yield to the commission. Thank you.
Okay, the chair entertains a motion.
I'll move a conditional approval of SU 20, get my glasses on. SU 23-003 to operate the cannabis establishment. Conditions being any existing structures and new construction proposed to be used for cannabis be required to meet all applicable construction, fire, and safety codes. Operating hours will be from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Sunday through Thursday, 9 to 10, Friday and Saturday, and fencing surrounding the ponding area will need to be fixed.
Does everybody understand commissioners understand the motion? Do I hear a second?
Yes. I'll second that.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay, Commissioner Lear, thank you. Ready for roll call?
Commissioner Zarges,
Yes.
Commissioner Montañez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lear,
Yes.
Vice Chair Zerniak,
Yes.
Chair Acosta.
Yes. Okay, thank you for your attendance. Next item on our agenda is administrative approvals, Albert.
Chair, we'll do that presentation at the end of the month.
Okay. Any staff input?
We have, I believe it's going to be the amendments coming up at the next meeting. The cannabis and the SUP amendments that we've been working on. So those are coming pretty soon to your.
Mr. Chair, those are going to require public hearing, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We already had the DRC, and we did get some good comments from Flood in regards to the solar facilities and what they want to see in future applications for that. So those will be incorporated into our final recommendation.
So the next question that I have you had any opportunity to work on any water issues or litigation or any of that subject matter that we've requested in the past?
No, I mean, I know we're able to get DOT in here, and I guess with your guidance, we can kind of, narrow down the conversation instead of having like a broad, this is what we're doing throughout the whole county. If you have specific issues or questions for them in regards to projects, then we can probably, have Harold Love come down here and give us a more updated presentation on that. In regards to water, we're still, in contact with the city engineer's office to see if we can get somebody to come down here and give us a presentation.
And I thought I'd bring something up, Albert. There's been several people concerned about degradation of the soil and these wind bursts that we've had in areas that are of concern for people's health. If you can address that issue somewhere along the way, and the other one that was concerning was, I never even paid attention that much to it, but it's been brought to my attention several times, is these clouds or things overhead over us. They're called contrails. Yeah. And what's the other issue for that? Contrails and whatever they are. And I said, well, I'll find out. We have staff, and if it impacts the safety and the general welfare of the public, if you can get some more information, or if anybody that you know is an expert in that, if they could come forward.
I can see if I can get a hold of somebody from NMED. I do have a contact there with our local NMED office here.
Right.
So
air quality.
What generated that, Mel? Those are 25 to 30,000 feet high.
Well, I don't know. If they're spreading chemicals or whatever, we certainly would like to know what we're breathing. I mean, what's the difference between that and dust, right?
You mean the contrails? Those are ice crystals.
Well, maybe not. We don't know. I'm just bringing this up because it's a concern for residents here, and so I thought I'd bring it up. Or chemical trails, I don't know. We don't know, but we'll find out. And I would appreciate that tremendously. Thank you so much. Okay, commission input? That was it? Okay, adjournment. All those in
Second.
favor?
All in favor?
Saying aye?
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Aye.
By the way, Commissioner Zerniak, thank you very much for coming back.
I'm more concerned with the spy balloons.